is a word that some people take negatively, but you look at, pain is really kind of like passion. If the things that we really work for, that we really want, that we really go for, it's actually the same edge of the sword.
Joining us today in the studio is an American ultra-endurance professional athlete, 7-time world champ, author, entrepreneur, Emmy Award winner, motivational speaker, and mountain bike and gravel Hall of Famer, Rebecca Rusch. Rebecca, welcome to the studio.
Hi, Dave Z. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so good to see you. It's been so long. I am so excited to have you on the show. And I know our listeners are big fans of yours and excited to hear your story. In our podcast today, what we like to do is celebrate our athletes' achievements on the bike, but also the things that they do in the world off the bike that are making this planet just a little bit better.
That's
and
awesome.
You are absolutely one of those people. Before we sort of jump into the meat of the show, I'd like to start from the beginning. Rebecca, where were you born?
The very beginning. I was born in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, on Ramey Air Force Base. My dad was in the Air Force and spent a short time there, and then grew up mostly in the suburbs of Chicago, Downers Grove, Illinois. I moved there when I was in first grade and spent, as you know, my childhood there, went to college there, and after college, a little bit of time working downtown Chicago, and then sort of hit the road. The road was calling, and then I lived in my car for a while. And I'm in Idaho now. I've been here in Idaho about 20 plus years now.
Growing up, your dad was in the military, and your mom, I'm assuming, took care of the house and the kids. What else happened around sort of the household in those early years?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was in the military, but he was shot down over Laos during the Vietnam War when I was just 3 years old. So, and we found out much later, many years later, he ended up dying that day in that crash. So we grew up in a single parent household with my mom being the breadwinner and everything else, and my sister and I, older sister. So really, yeah, my mom was a really great example for me of an entrepreneur and a woman working in the computer industry and raising two kids on her own at a time when that was hard work. And so she was working. My sister and I were, you know, left to fend for ourselves quite a bit and learn a lot of independence. Getting ourselves to school and making our lunches and making dinners and doing those kinds of things. So yeah, we grew up with the girls, and I attribute a lot of that to my sense of, not being held back by gender roles. I was never told girls don't do that. It was like, well, no one else is going to do
Right.
it. So here we are. There's the three of us, and we just figured it out. I mowed the lawn, I shoveled the snow, did this maybe the more traditional, what might have been assigned to a male. If I had a brother or a father in the house, and we just figured
Right,
it out.
right.
So I learned a lot growing up that way.
And Rebecca, eventually you went to the U of I and studied business and marketing, right?
I did. University of Illinois. I ran cross country there. Cross country running was my first introduction to sport and teams and movement, and I really attribute that. I found running in high school, and it really changed the trajectory of my life because I just discovered the joy of running and feeling my body moving and having a community that I belong to. And so yeah, went to college, joined the running team there, and didn't have a good experience with sport there. So I ended up leaving the running team and actually finding a bicycle for, I guess, the second time in my life. First time we all find a bike as a kid, and the second time in my life, I bought a road bike because I didn't know what else to do. I knew I needed sport. It
Right.
was sort of a drug that I needed. And running wasn't doing it for me because the team community wasn't supportive. So I got a road bike, and I rode around the cornfields of University of Illinois by myself. And that really was my first kind of solo experience with sport. And I left the bike for a long time after that, but that period during college, it really was an amazing tool for me.
So Rebecca, describe for me this next journey. So you leave the university and then what?
I leave the university and yeah, I had a marketing degree. I knew I wanted to be in sport, so I had a sort of took a lot of kinesiology classes and sport type classes and ended up getting a job in this really posh health club in downtown Chicago. That Oprah Winfrey was there, Michael Jordan was there. This really swanky health club, and I was an assistant
Was it
marketing.
East Bank Club?
No, it wasn't East Bank. It was what was it called? It was at One Illinois Center. I can't even remember the sporting club. That's what it was called.
Okay.
I don't know if it's
Okay.
still there. It was had 7 stories high, had a
Wow.
100-foot climbing wall in the middle of it, and I was the just fresh out of college assistant marketing person. So I wrote the little
Nice.
newsletters and stuff like that. I had to wear pantyhose and heels and a skirt to work. I was forced to do
Whoa.
that. And I worked for a guy that, um, let's just say, I don't know. I learned a lot from working for a boss of, somebody there, but it was cool. I was involved in sport. I was using my degree, and that's where I fell in love with rock climbing. I learned to climb indoors, and that really started the trajectory of me just going exploring in the woods and going outside, and eventually moving out west to climb initially.
So you had it with corporate life. You wanted more adventure. You split. You move west, and you start rock climbing. What then got you into you have a very non-traditional path in sport and adventure, but your first big investment was in adventure racing, right?
Kind of. I mean, I went to California. I was, in love with rock climbing. So I got a job at a climbing gym, a small, health club that had a small wall. I worked at some outdoor stores. I started teaching outside as a climbing guide and climbing a bunch. And then I actually got the opportunity to buy into one of the first climbing gyms in California, Rock Creation. And so I invested, $10,000. It was all the money I had in the world, and became part owner and manager of this chain of climbing gyms that opened up in California. And so, yeah, I'm using my marketing degree. I'm doing what I love. It was really cool, and opening and building those gyms, hiring the staff. It was an amazing business experience for me. Um,
Got a special guest here,
oh,
Rebecca.
hey, hi,
Hey, Rebecca.
welcome to the studio.
Ken can't hear you, but you can hear him.
Okay, that's weird.
I I heard Dave was doing your interview. I can't wait to hear it. Just wanted to say hi. You're awesome.
Thanks, Ken.
That's really funny. That's awesome. So yeah, like marketing degree, running climbing gyms, opening climbing gyms, like super challenged business wise to like learn how to manage people and order equipment and all that stuff. And yeah, I had my dream job. I had it made. I was set, and had some folks come into the climbing gym at one point and want to learn how to climb and rappel for this sport called adventure racing. And I was like, they weren't dressed like climbers. They didn't look cool. They like did not fit in. And I was just like, fine, I'll take your money. I'll teach you how to climb and rappel and, whatever. But I loved that job, and it was amazing. But these folks that came in introduced me to a sport called adventure racing, which was multi-sport, multi-day, ultra endurance stuff. And there was an event coming up in California where I was living, and they needed a girl. And the way that these adventure racing teams happened were they needed to be co-ed. So you had to have at least one female, at least that's how it was interpreted. You had to have your piece of mandatory equipment of a female. So I was invited to do this 24-hour race only because I knew how to rock climb and paddle and run. I could do three out of the 5 sports. Navigation was included, and also bike riding, mountain biking, which I did not do any mountain biking. I hadn't ridden a bike since riding around in college, on the roads in Illinois, and I'd never ridden a mountain bike. So that was but I did 3 out of 5 things. So I was invited on this team. Um, I was most worried about the cycling because I just didn't do it. I had no experience. And muscled my way through it. We actually ended up winning the event. Sort of this ragtag team of people beat all these other teams that had matching uniforms and stuff like that, and it was a 24-hour event, and the prize, was going to Morocco Eco Challenge, which was 10 times longer, and 7 to 10 days, and I didn't want the prize. I was like, I don't want that. 24 hours is too long to do anything. But it was a cool experience. I thought the bike would be my weakest link. I thought the guys would have to be towing me with a bungee cord and all that, and they didn't have to. It ended up I did fine. I was a contributing member of the team. I wasn't the weak link. So that was a big confidence builder and kind of showcased that I had endurance genes, even if I didn't have the skill to ride a bike. And yeah, that adventure racing career lasted 10 years. And so I quit my dream job. Became the team manager, and again, a little bit entrepreneur, and, hustling the sponsorship and the money and booking the plane tickets and all the logistics to manage the team. And I did that for 10 years just because I wanted to travel. Really, I wanted to go see places, and this was kind of a ticket to do that. So yeah, that was sort of phase two, I guess.
Did you end up competing in that eco challenge that first year?
Yeah, we competed in Eco Challenge Morocco, and our team had to drop out because two of our teammates got sick, and I just remember being so pissed off that I didn't get to finish, and being held back by, I felt fine. I felt super strong, and it's just like I needed to at least finish one. Was I went back on, okay, I'm going to finish one, and one led to many more and led to 10 years of captaining a team, captaining a 3 women 1 man team a few times, and finishing at a very high level. And yeah, but I didn't, it was unfinished business. So that's why I went back for another one. And then I just sort of got addicted to the travel and the endurance exploration of going for days and days with very little sleep, seeing the world in such a unique way. And, it may seem like a stretch, but I mean, that's how I ride now, is really is using it as a tool to explore and go see places.
Yeah. I'm curious. A lot of people refer to you in print and live as the Queen of Pain. I'm curious where did that nickname surface during that time, or was that later?
Yeah, that nickname surfaced during that time, during adventure racing. It was a title on the cover of a magazine that no longer exists. And yeah, it dubbed me the Queen of Pain. And it just kind of stuck. And, but I think of it, pain is, I don't know, pain is a word that some people take negatively, but you look at, pain is really kind of like passion. The things that we really work for, that we really want, that we really go for, it's actually the same edge of the sword. And so, it's not that I wouldn't say I don't want to hurt myself. Nobody wants that. But the things that I have done that have been really hard have fueled passion and have brought rewards
Right.
later. And so I almost look at it as the queen of perseverance or the queen of passion. But Queen of Pain, it just stuck. So
Yeah, it's good. It's a good one for sure. Rebecca, I'd like to switch now to the sprint round of our podcast where I throw a bunch of this or that's at you and just
okay.
sort of figure out which way you lean. So, gloves or gloveless?
Gloves.
Pancakes or waffles?
Neither.
Neither.
Do I wait? Are these the rules? Do I have to pick one?
No, no, no. That's a perfectly acceptable
Bacon.
answer. You're
I'm
just
gonna
the
just
first
say
guest that said
bacon.
that. You kind of stumped me.
Bacon.
Bacon, yeah. Well, I was the next question was gels or real food, so you can just say bacon there.
Yeah, that's another both. Yeah,
Situation dependent, right?
it kind of is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cold or hot?
Cold,
Rain or snow?
snow,
Spicy or mild?
spicy,
Pavement or dirt?
dirt,
Coffee or tea?
coffee,
Beer or wine?
Wine.
Power meter or perceived effort?
Ooh. Wow. I've done both. I love both. That's hard. I need both.
Okay. Okay.
If I
So that's
picked
it.
only one,
That's
it would be perceived because that's where I started.
right. Right. No batteries required.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sometimes batteries are required.
Yeah. All right. Changing gears once again. So you've had this incredible decade of adventure racing, um, and adventure challenges. At some point, you start to get really serious about the bike and actually joined up with a sponsored team, right? And start doing some endurance cycling events. Tell me about that transition.
Yeah, that transition's pretty cool. Adventure racing, yeah, for 10 years. And about that time I had a couple things really happen. We witnessed a friend dying in an adventure race right in front of us due to rockfall, and my teammate was injured and my friend Nigel was killed right in the middle of a race, and came home from that and really questioning why, why I do these things, sort of feeling a bit lost with my chosen career path at that point. And about the same time, we lost our main adventure racing sponsor. So it was the fall of a year, and I was kind of really questioning my existence and questioning, well, what am I going to do now? And what does he even mean? So sort of a bit of an existential big life question moment. And some friends locally in Idaho, I knew I was kind of down and like, let's go to 24 hours in Moab and let's do a team and let's just go ride bikes in the desert. It'll make you feel better. And so we entered, we entered as a 4-woman team. Catch 'em if you can that's the name of my hometown is Ketchum,
Nice.
Idaho.
Nice.
And my now husband crewed for us because he had experience doing 24-hour solo events. And so just me and a bunch of girlfriends and no pressure, no expectation. I'd never done a bike race in my life. And we ended up battling it out with this really good team from Park City, Utah, and beating them. And it was really competitive. And I was running all the technical sections. And jumping back on my bike and riding super fast on the easy stuff, and 24 hours for me, it was no big deal because adventure racing, those were week-long events, so staying up all night, no big deal. So I was just amped, and we're in the desert, we're having fun with this guy that I thought was kind of cute and a bunch of girlfriends, and we ended up winning the women's sort of whatever division we had entered, and I ended up having the fastest laps of any woman on in the race, including the pros. And I was just like, what a joke. I was
Wow.
running half of them, but I was just so I just needed that outlet. I was just so energized. You know me, I'm a really competitive person. So having a rabbit to chase was just like, all right, I'll just run. I'll run down the technical, I'll get back on. And I was just so amped and so competitive. And it was just what I needed. It was pretty amazing and so much fun, to the community aspect of it with my friends and, my now husband. And my husband, Greg, was just like, you should do one of these solo. And I was like, okay, sure, stay up all night, no big deal. So he offered a crew for me, for another race that was a month later or something. And I ended up doing that myself. And I beat the whole field, including the men. And just
Wow.
sort of was like, and again, terrible technical bike rider, running the sections I couldn't ride, jumping back on, but I could stay up all night. It was no problem. Like, and it was the outlet that I needed, the race outlet that I wasn't ready to give up yet. And so yeah, the couple sponsors I had left, I'm like, well, I'm gonna try bike racing for a year and see what happens, but only these 24-hour ones. And at the time, it was sort of the heyday of 24-hour racing, solo racing, and that's really where I connected with SRAM. Won 3 24-hour world championships, and what I thought was the end of one career, a successful sports career with adventure racing, world-class career, actually launched a far better trajectory of athletic career in cycling, which is kind of a joke because it was absolutely my worst of all the all the sports I've done. It was my worst
Yeah.
one. So yeah, and I learned to ride a bike, and not because I was skilled at it, but I think because I had the heart and the passion and the ability to just stay in it for the long game. So that launched the career in cycling, which started at, I don't know, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I actually remember, I don't think you remember this, but I was at a 24 Hour of Moab event where we were launching the new SID for RockShox.
I remember.
And we brought a bunch of journalists there, and you were there racing alone. And it was incredible. And I'm sure you crushed the field. But I remember we didn't really get to interact that much because you were racing.
Mhm.
But I got to see you several times running through the tent and checking in at at the tent every lap. What an incredible event.
I remember that one. I remember being like, "Oh, they got this new shock. Like, I want to go see it. I want to like see what it looks like. See if maybe I could get one." And I was so
Yeah.
humbled. Like, I was just going over there and talking to all of you. So I do remember that. I absolutely remember it.
Yeah, I'm sure you met John Dawson and probably laid the groundwork for what is now a 15-year relationship with us, right?
Yeah, I was sort of sniffing around the tent, and like you had a big presence and a big, release of this, and I was like, "Oh, wow." And so I did sort of feel like the little puppy sort of, like, "Hey, can I see what's inside? What's behind the tent?" And but yeah, it was the start of a really cool long-term relationship.
Yeah, that was cool. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. So you start getting seriously into bike racing, but specifically endurance racing. And then at some point, you start to shift into some other adventures, but also education and specifically women's type programming. Tell me about um, the genesis of that next transition away from sort of racing into other stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't say it's a genesis away from racing. It's just kind of an evolution. I mean, we're talking about changing gears. And it's absolutely, did a bunch of 24-hour racing and then like, okay, done that. Then Leadville was kind of exciting for a while, and then some mountain bike stage racing. But all along the way, I started going to events like Sea Otter and go and, hanging out at the SRAM tent and really sort of being a professional bike racer. And early on in that, I just remember because didn't grow up cycling. I wasn't a really strong cyclist. I didn't have a lot of experience. I just remember being super intimidated by the equipment and the people and a little bit of imposter syndrome. Yeah, I was winning these races, but like I still didn't really understand the equipment. I wasn't connected to the community yet. I just felt a little like an outsider. And I remember the day I went to the SRAM tent and at Sea Otter, which is a big deal. It's like big, massive platform and, shiny red tents. And I was too intimidated. And I was a SRAM athlete at the time through my bike sponsor. Um, and I needed some brake pads. And I was too intimidated to go in and ask for somebody. And I didn't know how to change them myself at the time. I was too intimidated to stand in that line or go and ask, even though I was a sponsored SRAM athlete, because I just didn't know all the people. I didn't know the lingo. And that prompted a conversation with, with some friends at SRAM and really with Mike Mercury and you and the founder. Merc was one of the founders of SRAM, and I felt comfortable enough with him to go up and say, I had this experience. It's not your fault. Maybe it's my fault, but this is the experience I had, and it didn't feel good. And I thought, if I feel this way, then other women or other new riders must feel this way, because I was a new rider, and I didn't want to feel that way, and I didn't want other people to feel that way. And so Merck was like, "Well, what do you want to do about it? How do you want to, change that?" And I said, "I don't know." And I have to really give SRAM a lot of credit here, where you didn't say, "Well, sorry, that's just the way the bike industry is," or "We are who we are." You said, "Okay, I hear you," but you also didn't know the answer. So you're like, "Well, what do you want to do about it?" Which was a really good challenge for me to be like, "Okay, don't just complain about this stuff. Be the change you want to see." And so that was the genesis of that we worked together on a lot, the SRAM Gold Rush Tour, which was basically, let's just make free events open to women and educate all of us on the things that intimidate us. And that was such a good run. I remember you were an integral part of planning that, of like, Crankwork, Sea Otter, all these places. And it sounds really common now, but at the time there were not women's
Yeah.
events, and not free. That was a big important part, that it's free, anyone can come. And what was really cool, what I really loved, is all these pro women that I like was sort of fangirling on. I had then got to go out and invite them and be like, will you be a presenter for this? Will you be part of the panel? And they were just like, yes. So the pros came in, the newbies came in, everybody came in, the sponsors came in. And that really was groundbreaking in sort of, I don't know, 2008, 9 era. And I'm really proud of that trajectory. But at the same time, still racing, still trying to do all this other stuff, still
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
multitask. But it's important to me that, because I had that experience, and I think what I've learned in my career is, if I'm feeling something, lots of other people are feeling it. So I've tried to use that as a guide. Like, I'm going through some traumatic brain injury recovery. If I'm feeling sway and I talk about it, probably a lot of other people are feeling that way. But that SRAM Gold Rush Tour launch was the first time I was like, okay, if I speak out, even though I'm kind of intimidated, we can all get together and solve some really cool problems.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so thankful that you did speak out. I'll never forget, actually, is in Chicago. Do you remember we had lunch together? We were at Whole Foods, the second floor, and we basically wrote the business plan for the Gold Rush Tour.
We did, and I was so intimidated. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a meeting with Dave Z, he's vice president at SRAM. And I'm just like, again, feeling a little bit like an imposter, but I'm so glad I spoke up. I'm so glad that you gave me the platform to be heard, and then also brought your expertise of planning and marketing into the mix. But I was so intimidated. I don't know if it showed, but my hands were sweating, and it was like this super big corporate meeting for me.
It didn't show. We just had salads at Whole Foods. We were just
We
like
did.
two people talking about a cool marketing program that was focused on women. And I mean, if anyone was intimidated, I was. I was sitting with the Queen of Pain.
Oh, it
No,
was
that was
awesome. Yeah,
great.
I'm really proud of what we created with that. It launched a lot of other women's programs for Katie Holden, Lindsay Richter. Not I'm not taking credit for it, but it just like gave a springboard for visibility, and it was really important that SRAM and a really big partner was behind a lot of that stuff, because that offers
Yeah.
legitimacy and visibility.
Yeah, no, I mean, Rebecca, we are so thankful for you and pioneering that program. Um, really excited what you did for us, what you did for the world, and getting more women on bikes was just a long overdue thing to happen. And so we couldn't be more thankful for your efforts there.
It's fun. It's not over yet either. It's launching lots of
For
other things,
sure.
which is cool. It's sort of a big snowball
For
happening.
sure. Yeah, so we had a great run with that dedicated program, and eventually we decided to bring it in-house.
Mhm.
And that also enabled you to sort of spread your wings or give you some wings. Um, wink, wink, which leads me to Red Bull. So how does a girl from the suburbs of Chicago who studied business marketing and then went into adventure racing get a deal with Red Bull?
Yeah, that's a cool story too. The climbing gym that I was managing in Santa Monica, California, back to those days, was right around the corner from Red Bull corporate offices in Santa Monica. And some of those folks would come over and climb in the gym, and through my paddling, because I was a paddler as well, this amazing world
Of
champion
course.
paddler Jamie Simon, I knew Jamie Simon, and she worked at Red Bull, and she actually took notice of a trip that I did, boogie boarding the Grand Canyon in winter with some friends. I did a riverboard trip, self-supported, and with two other women, and we did a small a documentary film about it, called Three Women, 300 Miles. And Jamie Simon, who is a whitewater person, took note of that, and we talked. I went into their corporate offices again and was just like, I love your brand. I love what you're doing. I had discovered Red Bull when I was living out of my car, and going to climbing early in the morning, and it was the one thing that kept me awake when I was driving. And so I had some experience with it, but I didn't really know about their whole athlete program. And so Jamie Simon was the first one who's like, you know what? We'll give you a case for your adventure racing team, and we'll go from there. And that was 20 years ago. And and we evolved. I didn't join them as a bike racer. I joined them as a paddler, really, and then adventure racer, and then bike racer. So it's great, kind of the same with SRAM, to be able to evolve and grow as an athlete, and not be put out to pasture, so to speak, when there's still a lot of good stuff left to do. But being allowed to evolve and grow is super important. And just a big contribution, that look at the mentors who in every career path, sometimes except for sports, where the lifespan is short to be a competitive athlete, for sure. But that doesn't mean your contribution just gets washed away, and learning from elders, and learning from people who've sort of macheted through that path, or trailblazed before you, is so cool. I mean, I just think
Yeah.
of when I was getting involved with cycling, people, like Marla Strub and Lee Donovan, uh, Marla Strub's book was the first one I read, the first cycling book I ever read. And those women were just pushing their way through, unapologetic and badasses and great on the bike. And I think it's really important to celebrate history and to keep it in the forefront, because we wouldn't be here without people, like Lee and Marla. And yeah, so that was sort of a roundabout answer, but yeah, I've evolved with a couple brands for a long time, and I'm pretty proud of that, because it's actually, you can do more. A long-term relationship is just way more fruitful than, a short-term one.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of books, Rush to Glory. Tell us about that.
Oh man. I will say writing is the hardest thing I do in my life. It's the only thing I do that is not a linear progression, where more work produces better results. And so I didn't want to write a book, but enough people were asking me to write a book. And really, what happened is a publisher came to me, which doesn't really happen, and said, "Would you write a book?" And I was like,
Right.
"Gosh, I guess I have to now." um,
If you already have a deal. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it sort of was landed in my lap, and I was like, this would be a really, really stupid opportunity to pass. And so for years, people have been saying you should write a book, and when it landed on me, I had to take the challenge and go for it. And honestly, thought no one would read it except for my mom. And it was a really full process of storytelling, and the first time of learning that people sharing their stories is impactful for somebody else. It felt at first like it was just going to be me talking about me, and I didn't want to come across that way of like, check me out, I'm awesome. And I never want to tell a story like that. So it was awkward for me. But when it came out, and people reading it, and their daughters read it, and their kids read it, and their parents read it, and more people than my mom read it, and they were just like, wow, I can see myself in there. And it inspired people. So that was my first experience feeling like, oh, you're an inspiration, which, it's a little weird to be labeled that, but it's the important of all of us telling our story, because we're not alone in this world, and we often feel alone, especially when things are the hardest and we're down or we're struggling through something. We often feel alone, and so telling stories is a way to connect with each other. And the book was the first experience with that. It came out, I don't know, 7 years ago, or I can't remember, but I'm just now got an
I
audio
think it was
version
longer.
launching, and I'm in my studio closet down in my house in the basement, actually
Oh,
reading.
nice.
I'm reading the audio version for it, which is really fun. So that will come out hopefully December 1st, and I'm pretty excited about
Oh,
that.
sweet. That's cool. I love it when the real author reads their book.
I have to. Who else could read it? You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's been fun reliving a lot of these stories, which I'm reading my own book, now, which I never read it after I was done with it. I just couldn't do it. It's just like I don't watch my own interviews because they're not for me,
Right.
but it is
Right.
kind of fun reading my book. It's a little memory lane. It might be inspiring a second one. We'll see.
Cool. Well, we look forward to reading that one. Um, Rebecca, man, your hands are in so many different pots right now. You are an advocate, you are an educator, you're an event promoter, you're a storyteller, you're an athlete. At some point, though, you started to think about a local event that you could put on and sort of own and help shape. And you come up with Rebecca's Private Idaho. What is Rebecca's Private Idaho all about? And why the heck did you want to run an event?
Oh gosh, yeah. Events are amazing. Events are hard. I always thought I wanted to put on a mountain bike event where I live because I live in a really cool place that I love, and I wanted to one share the magic of the outdoors and where I live with more people. But two, I wanted to give back to my community locally and the cycling community. And anyone who's a entrepreneur, professional athlete in outdoor sports, we don't make a lot of money. We don't have a 401k program or any of that, but I wanted to give back, and I didn't have the money to donate to World Bicycle Relief or things that I really believed in. And so the idea of an event was a way to give back, to show people beautiful space, bring them together. It's always been people, purpose, place. Bring people together, show them a great place, and ride with a purpose. And we launched 10 years ago. I launched a gravel event, even though I'm a mountain biker, and I went to a gravel event and, kicking and screaming because I'm like, I don't want to go to a road event. It sounds horrible, like death by boredom, you know? And I was forced to go to this long gravel event 11 years ago. And I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of mountain bikey. This is still off road. And I saw the potential to invite more people if I did a gravel event instead of a mountain bike event. And so I just started exploring my own home roads and kind of falling in love with, gravel bikes, which at the time there were no specific gravel bikes. You rode a cross bike, or you rode it, sort of a Franken bike. But yeah, I was like, more people could come. People won't be as intimidated. This feels more welcoming for me. And I launched RPI 10 years ago with the, people, purpose, place. It's always been a fundraising ride. 175 people came, and this year was our 10th anniversary with 1,500 people and an online training program and a way to compete remotely. And we raised this year for the Be Good Foundation and cycling related nonprofits $100,000 this year. So um, it's been quite a trajectory, but it was before gravel was cool. Now it'd be like, yeah, launch a gravel event. This was long before it was gravel was the new black or anything, but I saw it as a way to get more people riding on bikes, ride whatever you have, ride a fat bike, ride a mountain bike, whatever. And it just felt welcoming to me, which kind of goes back to the genesis of, the SRAM Gold Rush tour and all those things. Like, just bring people in. They don't have to be intimidated. And yeah, that was 10 years ago. And I'm really proud of what we've built as a team.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
I don't think you've attended yet, have you?
No, I have not attended, and you know that because you've been trying to get me to attend for 10 years.
All right. Year number 11 maybe is your magic year.
What month is it?
It's in September, early September.
Okay. All right. Keep pushing me. Don't give up.
I'll put it on your calendar right now.
Okay. Rebecca, we are almost out of time here, but I would really love for you to share anything and everything you can about the Be Good Foundation, because it is really special, and I know it's really close to your heart, but what it's doing is also really cool. I know it came off of the heels of your film Blood Road, but as we wrap up, I'd love for you to share a little bit about the Be Good Foundation.
Thank you. Yeah, and 7 years ago, I did a ride down the Ho Chi Minh Trail to find the map coordinates where my dad's plane went down, and to do the biggest expedition of my life, to ride the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So I took my career, my adventure, and really had a personal journey, and we did document that. That's the film Blood Road. But what happened there is I really found a purpose for my cycling, and this question that I've been asked my whole career: why? Why do you go these long distances? Why do you do this stuff? Why do you do all this suffering? I found that answer there, standing in the place where my dad died, and he signed all of his letters home with the words "Be Good," and I stood there just knowing that I could use my bike for more, and that my career as an athlete wasn't about world championships or Hall of Fame or anything like that. It was about doing what my dad asked me to do, which was to be good. And so I came home from that, one, being appalled by the bombs that are still left from the Vietnam War. And, what I discovered on my bike was my purpose, but also, the tragedy that's still there. And so I launched the Be Good Foundation in his name, and the mission statement that I wrote was to use the bicycle as a catalyst for healing, empowerment, and evolution. And I chose those words carefully because that's what the bike has given me. And I've seen that happen time and time again, in Africa with World Bicycle Relief, with an individual who rides and did something they didn't think they could do. And the bike is just such this universal tool for healing, empowerment, and evolution. And so we have a lot of different projects, but they all focus around more people on bikes, protecting the places that we ride, and really giving access to everyone to be able to ride a bike, for whether it's for PTSD recovery, whether it's for transportation to a place that they need to go, whatever it's for. And I've been involved with World Bicycle Relief for a long time. We contribute to them through the Be Good Foundation, and I've learned that from SRAM and WBR as well, of that the pinnacle of my career is not winning a world championship or a Hall of Fame. The real success of a career is, what do you do with that stuff? And that's what the Be Good Foundation is about. So people can find me anywhere. We do Blood Road screenings. We do a lot of different projects. And that's just on my website, on the Be Good Foundation website. But launching the foundation, that might be, I'm more proud of that than anything. And hopefully my dad's proud of that too.
I'm most certain he is, as are we. Rebecca Rusch, Queen of Pain, it has been an honor and privilege to talk to you and hear your story, and I'm sure the listeners will get a kick out of this. We will put links to all of your efforts in the show notes, so you can follow along with your career, Instagram and Be Good and Blood Road and RPI. So we'll make sure that those are all listed. Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon. And hopefully next year I'll be at RPI.
Thanks, DZ. And I'll just go ahead and sign you up right now. So you've got that registration all dialed. Registration's open. And I really appreciated the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Be good.